I can feel the heat already on this one, telling the photographer to embrace AI. But yeah, I've got a few thoughts on it basically. Because I dip in and out of portrait editing and obviously shoot some weddings now and some events, there's a limited amount of, say, skin retouching you can do doing it manually because obviously time is the greatest currency. And when you're spending 40 minutes a photo editing sort of the skin, cleaning the circles under the eyes, making the eyes pop, etc., it's not feasible to do, say, like 100 photos of a wedding to a cover girl style retouch. But there's some fairly new software called Evoto AI. It's probably the only software I've come across so far where it retouches skin to a professional standard by just using some Lightroom style sliders. So I've got an image here as an example. This is a 100 megapixel image off of my Fuji GFX 100S. So the model is a friend called Beth. As you can see, you can zoom right in on this. But we arranged a last minute shoot a few weeks back when there's actually a storm going off in the UK, but we managed to nip down the park anyway for a few shots. But on this particular shot, she the night before she decided to go out partying at last minute, so she has some dark circles under her eyes. Now, if I was to do this in Photoshop, I'd have to use the patch tool or similar and sort of select it and drag to other areas of the skin to kind of blend it in, or maybe use a layer and do some color blending. But with this app, it's very simple. But I'm not just going to do the eye bags. I'll do a full-on retouch and show you just how quickly it works and how well it works. So let's just start with a few of these general sliders like freckles and acne, just to smooth the skin out a little bit. And reduce face shine. There wasn't loads of shine. Face, forehead wrinkle. You can see a little wrinkle at the top there, so we'll just bring it up a bit. Eye wrinkle. But this one here, if you see this dark circle, see how quickly it just removes that. It's just like pretty much vanishes. Eye bags, let's just move that as well. See, there is no way in Photoshop you could do all those edits in 60 seconds. That alone there is like, what, 10 minutes worth of fiddling around. And then you've got here, smile line. Soften that. Lip and wrinkle flakes. You can do the neck. Obviously, it's not got a neck on here. She hasn't got double chin, fortunately. Here we've got skin retouching tab, which is more sort of smoothing. But you can even the skin with dodge and burn by just doing a slider. And then you can sculpt the shape with dodge and burn as well. So if in Photoshop, for example, I would probably create a very strong S-curve, completely mask it, and then gradually start painting in the highlights and shadows with, say, a 5% brush and slowly building it up. Whereas with this, it's just a case of dragging a slider, and it obviously does it to a good standard. It's quite subtle, and you have to push it more and more if you really want it to pop. But that's what we like. We don't want it overdoing it. The only other sort of AI skin retouching I've used is Luminar, and that's just really like skin blur and enhance the eyes. It's not nowhere near as detailed or as thorough as this. I'd say this is the only sort of feasible app I've used so far where it retouches to pretty much what I would do if I was doing it all manually. So here we've got textured smoothing as well. I don't really use the frequency separations in this, but in Photoshop, if I was doing it manually, I would. And here we've got like softened skin. But here we've even got like skin texture on it, matte, which sort of dulls down the highlights. Satin, which is sort of like happy medium, or you can make it dewy, which is more sort of glossy, like that, but that's too much. I don't like that. I find satin's pretty good, and I sometimes tweak the glossiness and texture here. Yeah, you've also got AI Unify Face Complexion, so that'll even out the skin tones, and it's got that for the body. But you can really push this software far. Like you can even add makeup to a good standard. It's got skin radiancy as well, which can sort of make it glow. I mean, I've probably done this a little bit more than I intended to, really, on the dodge and burn. So I'll probably go back in a minute. But yeah, you've got all this sort of facial reshape that you'd have in the liquefy tool as well in Photoshop. So you can make the eyes bigger, sort of bring the cheeks in. So like here, you can bring it up and down. I tend to not use that. I'll do it very subtly because I don't like pushing edits too far away from the original subject. You want, like, in my opinion, with like portrait retouching, you want a nice enhancement, but you don't want it to look like a different person. Think of it as if you were going on a date and you went to meet someone and their photo looked nothing like them. I take the same sort of approach with photos. Like, you want it to look like the person still. You just want it to be like them on a good day with good makeup. But yeah, one thing I do like to do is on the eyes here. This is a nice little feature, which is you can easily brighten the slider, and an iris flare, which just creates that sort of glow at the bottom of the eye, and removing red veins, which obviously a slider, or I use a clone brush. So what else? You've got, like I said before, you've got makeup here where you can sort of add highlights and contour the face. But you can fix the hair part line as much as you want, and the volume of the top hair. Don't do it too much though. Remove stray hairs. So I'm just looking at my recording progress. So I've done 7 minutes so far, including the introduction. But if I was to have done these edits by hand, you'd be looking at probably 30 to 40 minutes of work. And bear in mind, you can save this as a preset as well. So say you was retouching a wedding or an event, and the client said to you, I want the skin retouching on every sort of wedding portrait. Then to do the kind of cover girl technique on all of those, say it was 100 photos, so it'd be like 100 times 30 minutes. I mean, and if you quoted that editing time, you just price yourself out of the job. But with applications like this, you can obviously do it way quicker, and it becomes a feasible option. And let's face it, other people are going to embrace it. So if you don't embrace it, and say you quoted 1,500 quid to do it manually on the wedding, someone else could quote 1,000 and give you the same results, and then they would obviously edit it all in half the time and then be on to the next job. So I think AI with things like this is a really good and useful tool, because it just takes the monotonous repetition work out. So I know there's quite a lot of cynicism around AI, and I get it, because obviously if I go out and shoot like a Milky Way photo and you're spending 2 hours out in the cold capturing skies, and then you put it all together when you get home only to have someone go on to some kind of generative AI application and just type in make Milky Way behind nice church. I can see from that perspective it's like really irritating, especially if they're not honest and they don't tell you that it's AI. But I think if you embrace it in a workflow standard like this, it can be really good. I think it's human nature for people to at first complain about new technology. It's been the same when I first I've been in the print and photography. Well, I've been doing photography, approaching 12 years now. Printing I've been in for 25. And when I first come into printing, it was called reprographics, where you would produce film, which would be then exposed to a metal plate. to go on a printing press, and then that all got automated, and it became computer to plate. And all the people that from the reprographics would sort of sit around and moan, "Oh, everything's changing," but rather embrace the change, they would sit and complain and then go out of business. And it was probably similar when printing became more e-commerce and there became a thing called batch printing, where they'd print 8 clients' leaflets up together to share the cost of the plates across 8 jobs. So you'd be like you get now, we're like 5,000 flyers for £100. 20 years ago, 5,000 flyers on their own would probably cost you £400, or maybe 500. So the big companies that didn't embrace that method of printing where you batch things together, again, would sit around, complain, and then eventually go bust. Whereas the other firms who did embrace it, they survived and, being a poet, thrived. But my main point being that you have to embrace things. If you just complain and just look at the negative of everything, you're just going to go bust, or you're going to make your life really hard. I won't get too philosophical, but I think you could apply this to most things in life. Even social media. Some people moan about social media, like, it's ruining everything. But I think with everything in life, you've got a 50-50 yin and yang. If you choose to look at it positive and use the positive attributes of it, it can really help. But if you just sit and call it crap, then it's no good for anyone. But anyhow, back to this edit. I'm just going to zoom out with that now, so as you can see, that is pretty decent. I'll pull the dodge and burn down if I was doing it. I'll put it down now anyway, because it's a little bit too much. And maybe the skin smoothing down a bit. Before I forget, also, here's a little before and after with just what them few sliders have done. You see, that's just quite an improvement, isn't it? I'm not in any way affiliated with Evoto, but I just find it really useful. And you do have to buy credits, which is a little annoying, but you get 800 credits. And when there's a sale on it, 800 credits will be, say, £45. So that works out 6p a photo. So do you pay 6p a photo, or do you sit there for 40 minutes doing it by hand? That is the $1 million question, isn't it? But, I thought I'd just introduce you to this software. The 100 megapixel photos as well, just how much cropping power you've got and detail. But anyhow, you get the gist. I'll do some more content on the Fuji GFX. So far, I've only had it about a month. And this extra 2 bits of colour, which make it 16-bit, and the resolution just gives you that bit more. It's hard to explain, really, but I'd say portraits look a bit more 3D. Just the extra bit of colour range just makes them pop. And I was asking the other half, actually, without telling her which camera is which, and you can tell the difference. So if you'd like to see my work, please go on Chris Cork Photography on Instagram, and please hit subscribe to my YouTube also, and I'll catch you soon.